Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of The Rocketeer, the Deluxe Edition. This is the Complete Adventures by Dave Stevens. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before getting started, a big thank you to the folks at IDW for sending us this Complete Adventures Deluxe Edition. And what we're looking at here is The Rocketeer by Dave Stevens. It's everything he worked on as far as the character of the Rocketeer. And it is a slipcase. I'll be taking that out of the slipcase here in a little bit. You have The Rocketeer, The Complete Adventures by Dave Stevens, the IDW logo down there. Then the back of the book, showcasing this amazing design. And then the back of the slipcase. So let's actually get it out of the slipcase here. Now, the slipcase does come sealed in plastic, and it does have a leaflet. You all know, us leaflet folks, we like to keep these in the book. The retail price is at the very bottom of this book, by the way. It is $100. That's the retail price for the slipcase edition. And if you want to know how big this is, it is taller and longer than your Omnis. So it's bigger. It's about the size of an Absolute Edition when you have it in the slipcase. So let's take a closer look here. Here's the cover by Dave Stevens. We saw the spine. And then the back of the book, which is the rocket pack. All right, we're going to be opening this book up and looking at this beautiful artwork. Now, this particular edition does have the colors by Laura Martin, who was handpicked by Dave Stevens himself. We're going to be talking about the stories collected in here, but just making people fall in love with Dave Stevens. Oh my gosh, his Betty. All right, let's crack it open. All right, let's go ahead and crack this beautiful book open. I love the end sheets here because it shows Dave Stevens' black and white art, and that's why a lot of us fell in love with The Rocketeer. I am going to be talking about the plot, but I just want to go ahead and say that while the plot is nice, it's fun, it's awesome at times, it's not why I fell in love with The Rocketeer. It's Dave Stevens' beautiful artwork. Sadly, we lost Dave in 2008. He had been fighting cancer for a while by himself, like nobody knew about it. He unexpectedly died, so a lot of us were just shocked because he was so young. But this was his project. This was his baby. But before he passed away, he had let IDW print this book. So the idea was there, and he handpicked Laura Martin to do the colors here. And oh my gosh, the colors are beautiful here. This is for Dave, who always wanted to see this happen. The introduction here is by Thomas Jane, of course, who went on to play the Punisher, and a renowned actor in Hollywood, and also happened to be a friend of Dave Stevens, and talks about how much Dave Stevens' work influenced him whenever he first read the comic book. This does have the complete Rocketeer series in here, 276 pages. But 100 of those pages are supplemental material. It's all the sketches and preliminary drawings and notes, and just kind of giving you an insight as to the internal workings of this. The plot itself, as I mentioned, is, well, here, let me just tell you a little bit about the background. So this was originally published in 1982 by Pacific Comics. And it was like a backup story, just a couple of pages as a backup for, I think it was Star Slayer issue number 2 and 3, and it just became so popular, these little backup stories, that eventually in 1983 they kind of greenlit the series, and there was all kinds of things happening behind the scenes, because it wasn't just Stevens himself drawing just this. He was focusing on other works too, other things going on, but eventually Pacific went under, and then it was printed over by Eclipse Comics. I think that started in like 84, 85. And as probably some of you all know, they went under in 1994. And then it was also printed by Comico Comics. I think the first time I ever read these were one of my friend, Brian Martin, was a huge fan of the movie. And I hadn't even heard of the comic until the movie came out. So some of you probably are familiar with The Rocketeer because of that movie. And I love that movie. Oh my gosh, Jennifer Connelly. If we couldn't get Betty Page, Jennifer Connelly was a nice addition. But yeah, Brian had the comics. Yeah, I think it was the Eclipse comics. So I've never seen the Comic or Pacific comics. But yeah, in the 90s, we had The Rocketeer, which was a freaking awesome movie. It was supposed to have happened like all the way back in the early 80s when this was coming out. But just things kept falling apart, unfortunately. Dark Horse eventually did print some of the stuff in black and whites. They got the rights to, I think, print the third issue of The Rocketeer. But in 2008, I think, is when IDW acquired the rights to the Rocketeer. So it was kind of their idea, their approach to ask Dave if he wanted to do like a complete collection, which is why we got this beautiful complete adventures. All right, so that's kind of a little bit of the history of the Rocketeer comic. It's a lot more to it than that. And you're going to see a lot of wonderful art in here that, of course, is inspired by the times that Dave Stevens wished he was alive. There's a wonderful documentary, if you haven't seen it. I strongly suggest it. You don't have to be a Dave Stevens fan. You just have to be somebody that appreciates artists and art like this. All right, the story does take place in April 1938. This is the story of Cliff Seckard, who's this pilot. He's like a part-time pilot. He can't keep a job, and he flies for the Bigelow's Air Circus. And of course, all these places and some of these characters are based on real people, which are can't help but notice here. Now, one night, these two shady looking characters try to get away from the police by jumping on a plane, stealing one of Cliff's planes, actually his only plane, but they get caught. So what they do is they stash this thing that they were hiding from the police inside of one of the planes. And Cliff, of course, finds it, and he has no idea what exactly it is until he starts reading it, and he finds out that it's some kind of rocket pack that can go 200 miles per hour. So he's like, look, if I'm going to be flying around without a plane, I'm going to need some headgear. So he calls his buddy Peavy. Peavy, of course, is based on an artist who was the mentor of Dave Stevens. And I swear, just go watch the documentary. Completely worth it. But Peavy's like, yeah, sure, I can make you a helmet, kid. Let's try it out. So he does. He makes him a helmet, and then Cliff, just being irresponsible, losing track of time, realizes, oh my gosh, I forgot I'm in the air show. So they put a drunkard in the airplane instead of him, and this is the first time, so freaking awesome, this art, that he dons the Rocketeer outfit, and the newspapers call him the Rocketeer, and he does the heroic thing of saving this guy that's in the airplane. It's about to crash. Saves him, flying around, but still doesn't quite know how to land yet. And this is Betty, his girlfriend, who he thinks just wants money, who he thinks just wants attention. She's trying to be a movie star. And yes, she is based on Betty Page. My goodness. And the reason why Betty Page got like a second wind of popularity back in the early 80s was because of this comic. People sought after her, and her and Dave Stevens became really good friends because of this comic. It's so cool. And of course, he had the biggest crush on her because she was, 50s model. So, who are these people? Why do they want the Rocket Pack back? Is the rocket pack part of a science experiment? Does it belong to the US? Well, as you find out the more you read this, is that it's actually got ties to maybe Howard Hughes, and maybe the Germans want this, and they can't get their hands on this type of technology. Betty and Peavy get involved, and it's up to Cliff to rescue them, now calling himself the Rocketeer, because that's what the newspapers called him. Most of the time, whenever I look at books like this, I try to tell people, like, it's got mature themes. I don't. It has a couple of nip slips in here, so I didn't even say anything. So if that stuff bothers you, like minor nudity, just nudity, classy nudity, I don't even want to say pass on this, but I guess I gotta respect everybody. Pass on this, but it is classy. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. So that's the first story arc, is how he's able to get his girlfriend back, how he's able to keep the costume, and how he fights off the villains. Now, the second part of this book, the second story arc, gives him an adventure in New York City. because Betty doesn't trust that he wants to get rid of the costume. That's the first piece he drew, by the way. This is also found in the back in black and white, but there's a couple of little house ads here. Steve Ditko's Missing Man down here in between the two story arcs. So this New York storyline is a lot different. New York storyline like shows a little bit of background of the character of Cliff and what he used to do before flying for the flying circus, Bigelow's flying circus. He was actually in a circus. And it starts with a murder mystery while he's trying to get Betty back because Betty, as I mentioned, is like, oh, you're never going to get rid of that thing. You're always going to be nothing but trouble and a deadbeat. I'm going to go with Marco, who's this sleazy Hollywood guy that just wants me for my body. And it sucks to be hot, but what am I going to do? I actually like the character of Betty. She's kind of complex. She's not one dimensional damsel in distress. And it's up to Cliff to go and get her back, but then he gets caught up on this, like I said, murder mystery that features this character right here. This is Lothar, who was part of the circus and could be part of the reason why some of the circus friends that Cliff had are being killed off one by one. But why exactly? And what does it have to do with Jonas? Well, you can find out for yourself by reading the second arc. Sadly, that's all there was of The Rocketeer. Let's go to the extras and I'll explain. All right, now we're looking at the back matter here. Over 100 pages. I said 100 at first, but over 100 pages of extras. You have unpublished artwork here. This was supposed to be a cover for the Pacific Presents. This is supposed to be... Oh, this is as seen in the Rocketeer Adventure magazine. So you cut out your own plane here and make your own plane, and then you have some behind the scenes like sketches and who the Rocketeer is based on, preliminary sketches, and also the original idea for Cliff, who was supposed to be 14 or 15. That page, that's it. This is the first page or the first piece of art that was published by them. It does come with a ribbon. Forgot about that. Forgot to mention that. But we'll look at how it's built here in a little bit. But you have all these layouts right here. And then you have the black and white art. Not all of it, but some of it. Apparently he kept all the pieces of original art, with the exception of just a handful that he gave away to friends. And then some of the changes in the artwork that happened later on, whenever he changed the story, if he wanted to change the angle. Now, of course, he's not alone. You probably noticed at the very beginning here that this is by Dave Stevens with coloring by Laura Martin, lettering by Carrie Spiegel, but these are the additional credits right here for art assist and also co-writers. So you can see like Michael Kaluta was one of the big art assists back here, Jeff Darrow and Arthur Adams. Um, Dave was a little slow, and he was also working on other projects. As a matter of fact, when you read the intro, you're going to find out just how slow he was. And then, of course, when people didn't know he was sick, his art slowed down. But Thomas Jane talks about how he wanted him to draw a cover for his comic, and he knew how slow he was, so he said, you can draw the last cover of the last issue. And it took him 2 years. And he said in the Dave Stevens fashion, it took him 2 years to finish that cover. Because there's just something about his brushstrokes and his composition and layouts, and of course character designs. Oh, he was just such a master. So good. Oh, Betty. Of course, based on Betty Page, but she herself just becomes a character. This right here is this amazing piece drawn in 1984. So, as I was saying, not only was he just a little slow when it came to drawing, but he was also working on other things. It wasn't just the Rocketeer that Dave was working on. He had other projects that he was known for. But the Rocketeer is probably the one that put him on the map for a lot of people. And, he worked with Mike Grell on some of the Star Slayer stuff. Um, I think he did work for Walt Disney. He was an animator for a while, and then he did like some storyboards for, maybe it was the Flash TV show, if I'm not mistaken. But it wasn't the only thing he was working on. Oh, he did do some Johnny Quest stuff too. And here's another fold out right here, featuring this amazing image. Such a talented guy, just gone way too young. I do love this. You have the sketch right here. beautiful. Even without the color, that is absolutely stunning right there. And this is the animator, Doug Wadley, who is the inspiration for Peavy. And at first he thought it was a jokey thing, like, oh, that's not funny. But then he read the story and he could see how much respect there was for that character. There's Dave himself. Good looking guy. More sketches. There's a lot of sketches in here. And again, just minor nudity at times. This is so freaking awesome. So it's nice to have it all in one place. All of the Rocketeer. I think he is based on an actor, wasn't he? Like the ugliest actor, Rondo Hatton. Yeah. Apparently known as the real-life monster in Hollywood. And then again, some more art. I didn't even talk about Goose, but you can find out who Goose is in the second story arc. Look at the detail right there. Damn, that's so good. And this is looking over some of Dave's writing. And then, of course, making some changes. Then doing some layouts. Kaluta talks about the layouts that he did and some of the changes that he made. So yeah, if you're a fan of the movie, and if you haven't read The Rocketeer, man, you are in for a treat. 1991, so long, boys. Got a plane to catch. And then the bio on Dave himself. And your end sheets, it's different than what they used here. It's still in black and white. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Now, the book has 276 pages. It is printed in this glossy paper stock, but it is thick and again in color. Wonder if they ever do a black and white collection like this, if they would use this or like some matte paper, like thick matte paper to do it. But that's it. It's a masterpiece. Beautiful, beautiful piece of history. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this complete edition's deluxe edition, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this beautiful slipcase showcasing this wonderful artwork by Dave Stevens. Let me know in the comments down below if you have the previous printing, if you want to eventually collect it just like this in this format but in black and white, and if you have any questions. And if you've read it, what do you think of The Rocketeer by Dave Stevens? But that's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.